This is Wayne Morrow, the CEO of JBS.
Thank you. We got a PowerPoint here, brother?
Yep, you should be able to run that.
All right. Maybe not. Let's see, try to get the full screen here, brother. Let's see. Well, that looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Right. So last time you saw me, it's been about at least a couple of years ago, right? So I got promoted to CEO last November. Oh. So my head hit the ceiling now, I can't go any farther. And so what you're seeing here is about a year's worth of things that we've talked about doing that I always wanted to do. Now no one can stop me from doing it. And so I'm going to go through a bunch of books and all that we have, which we reposted or brand new. But also, we spent a lot of time doing marketing, outreach, and we'll talk about some new things we're doing. And next year is even more so. But I did this presentation at the leadership meeting in Valley Forge in September. We had we had Catherine Austin-Fitz, and we had our speakers speak on the economy, whatever. And we had probably about almost 500 people, and it was really well attended. And so I had a chance to introduce a lot of new things that we're doing. They're pretty excited. Matter of fact, people wouldn't go to sleep. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, still talking, right? That's usually a normal JBS meeting, right? This clip here is I put this together. It sort of puts together some things that'll surprise you. But you'll see General Flynn in here, who's become a friend of the Birch Society, and I got to spend time with him in D.C. a couple, 3, 5 times. But I want to show this to you because the Birch Society is being rebranded, coming back again, in a lot forceful way than you can imagine. I'll tell you what we're doing internationally, and Bob will see if I can find my clicker, because if I find that, we'll be good to go. All right, let's see if this guy works. So you have volume on this, Bob?
Yeah, I can turn up here, I think, maybe.
All right. All right, let's see what happens here. Ready?
And those groups that kept the spirit alive.
What would America and the world be like without Mr. Welsh and without the John Birch Society? And I mean, they were Americans, they were academics, they were veterans, they were former intelligence people, they were patriots, and they saw it and they fought back.
Many of our friends are so very busy, enjoying the good life. But I think too many of our friends and neighbors have not been willing to take the time, to make the effort, to protect the system that allows the good life to be possible. The John Birch Society was founded to build an informed electorate and to reverse that problem. And it has been the most successful organization of its kind in the world. A tremendous campaign was launched in December of 1960 to move to discredit the John Birch Society.
Let me just tell you what Newsweek says that the John Birch Society considers communism only one arm of a master conspiracy in which socialist American insiders are plotting to establish world government.
You know, that kind of silly, asinine statement is what
Makes people laugh at the John Birch Society.
you are looking at a group that has worked to bring about the dissolution of national authority off the road to work government. And certainly you're familiar with local professor Carol Quigley, who's been part of your club, in which he admitted all this. And he said in his book, Tragedy and Hope, the only thing I disagree is that we've worked to keep it a secret.
We've been talking about the Constitution. One of the things I really admire about the John Birch Society is you understand the power and importance of the Constitution and the power and importance of the state's powers of Constitution, which is, I spent half my year living in Europe, and I have to tell you, there's not a country in Europe that wouldn't just do anything if their country had the state powers of the Constitution that we enjoy here.
John Birch Society has published dozens of books that I personally read that have the quotes from proto-globalists 100 years ago. Then I went and actually UT Library got many of the books were there. I wanted to see it for myself, and that's why you have such an attack on America.
Because if you think the pressure on you now is bad, you ain't seen nothing. They're coming at you like you've never seen before. They're going to make your work environment toxic. They're going to make your community toxic. All of it. There's a lot of elements. Just go back and look at the John Birch. A lot of things they said and kind of, it sounds a lot more true than some of the other stuff that was put out there. Just saying.
You know, it's really rather easy once every 4 years to put a bumper sticker on for 2 weeks. I think that's why it's so appealing. It doesn't require any great deal of understanding or commitment. But to those individuals who are willing to take a look in the background of the issues and take a look at the voting and the representation of their representative in the Congress and in their senator, these are the individuals who deserve the great praise, and that requires a lot of hard work, day in and day out, not just at election time. But once again, the Congress is the key.
We didn't create this country on a 3-day weekend. We created it by a lot of sacrifice. John Birch was another example of sacrifice, and he didn't know that this was going to be created. He did it because he loved his country, and he knew what his duty was.
The majority of what you see Trump doing is my playbook, Ron Paul's playbook, J. Edward Griffin's playbook, Charlotte Iserby's playbook, Anthony Sutton's playbook, Senator Barry Goldwater's playbook, the John Birch Society playbook. And they're the real OGs. Everything they wrote 60, 70, 40 years ago, it was all dead on 100% accurate about the New World Order. They gave us the blueprint of the enemy operation. And because of the tireless work of folks going back into the 50s and 60s and on through today, but it was really the John Birch Society that stood up the first citizen army who exposed this tirelessly. They created the seed of the giant mighty oak you see right now, globally.
Our danger is both immense and imminent. All we must find and build and use to win is sufficient understanding. Let's create that understanding and build that resistance with everything mortal men can put into the effort while there still is time.
Yeah, so thanks. That was a collection of a lot of video clips. You know, you see Alex Jones. Matter of fact, our people were on it. Bill Jasper was the president. He was on out. He took Alex Jones' seat for 2 days. Actually, he was actually running that. It was amazing to see our guy running the Alex Jones program. And you know, we mentioned some of the other folks here. Larry McDonald, who was, you know, our congressman in the past, and he would have been my congressman. And
he was murdered.
Go through that because the Birch Society is now becoming a very top of the line conversation because time has proven it's right. Things we talked about, you guys were insane, but now time has proved it's right. And like even Steve Bannon says, well, a lot of things have been saying. So that's why I have a lot of these books here, because it validates what we've said. It's not my opinion. Go look it for yourself. And anything we talk about tonight, you don't believe me, that's why I bought the books. You can do it yourself, do your homework, you'll say, hey, you are not pulling our leg, it's real. Let's see if this thing works. Let's see if I get this thing on, it probably would work, huh? All right.
A lot of credit.
Yes. We already talked about you. Okay, Ron? All right. So I just want to go over some things that we've done. And we'll talk a little bit about some things we're going to do in 2026. So the Birch Society, if you guys can see this, is I start off with this. We have a lot of affiliates. So the parent is the Birch Society. We have Freedom Project Academy, which is our school. It's 15 years old. Goes from kindergarten to high school. It's a non-for-profit. And we have live instruction where a student can see the instructor lifetime on his computer screen, right? But the instructor can't see the children. We also recorded some of those classes so they can take it with them. And so there's a lot of ways you get to the education. We're seeing the homeschool movement grow like this, United States. I think there's around 7 million homeschool students today.
Wow.
And we see it grow around 10 to 15% every year and more.
Good.
So we got lots of calls. We have students from all over the world. We have Navy, Army people whose kids go to our school. And we're pretty excited about that because it continues to grow because we teach our students how to read, how to do real math, how to write cursive, do homework. How about that, right? And we have kids from the public school that get tested. And they said, my son's brilliant. They're an 8th grader. We test them, they're really 7th grade or 6th grade. The guy, Duke Pesta, who actually manages a school for us, who's a professor at the University of Wisconsin, says this. He said, and he's an English professor of Shakespeare, right? So if you like Shakespeare, here you go. He said, take a guess at the average student coming in at freshman or sophomore in his class. Take a guess at their writing level when they come in. Take a wild guess. The writing level.
Fifth grade.
No?
Third.
No, 6th grade, 6th to 7th grade. And he said they cannot define a verb and a noun.
We cover that.
They can't do that. So he says that because I grade kids' papers in our school. But yet they're going through college, right? This is every college? No. But this is a good data point, right? Important. We also have the New American Magazine, which looks like this.
Academy.
And I left a bunch back there for Bob, so you guys could use these as samples when you have meetings. I used to use this when I started this in Florida. That's not how I started my life. I was started as a research scientist, and I was in Lockheed for a while. Then I did some inventions, and I lived in Europe for 4 years. And so I've been a member since 1976.
Wow. But
But I've been on staff for 10 years. I was minding my own business. Said, hey, how would you like to work on staff? Well, not really. And here I am, right? But our magazine comes out once a month now. This is a really good recruitment tool. I have some older copies. It's not that old, but it shows you we usually call what's going to happen in the future. It happens here. Okay? So that magazine, New American. And then we have the Western Islands Publishing Company. Yes, we publish our own books. I have a whole bunch to talk about. This happens to be Gary's League book, Vanguard of America's Cause. Talks a little bit about the Birch Society. How we started, what do we do, how come, what for, if you're interested in joining. It tells you kind of like his take on what it is. But we publish this ourselves under Western Islands. A lot of the books you hear are published by ourselves, okay? That's a really unique thing to have. And then we have the Law Enforcement Charitable Foundation, which is a non-for-profit, which actually we go around the United States getting money from donors, giving various police officers and sheriff departments, not only education, but materials that they may need. Even the small, poorer ones in counties that we may see. You didn't hear of this county. So that's what we do. That's kind of our affiliate mess, but really lots of different pieces. So I look at the Birch Society, kind of interesting. Outside of my window, my office, I have a magnolia tree. And a lot of folks that I meet along the way, you know, everybody has an opinion. But they spend a lot of time up here. I call them the weeds, but it's up in the branches. So I put it here, Convention of States, the Great Reset, United Nations, you know, Second Amendment, defund our police, COVID-19, blah, blah, blah. These are all manifestation of fruits of the conspiracy. So here's the globalist agenda, but we point to the New World Order, which is, you can't see it because it's under the ground. So the thing is, and this is a pictorial, that we point to what's really not seen called the New World Order. The conspiracy, that's hard to see. And people go, well, I'm going to spend all my time on the Second Amendment. Well, that's great, and that's a good thing to do. But you're not going to destroy the New World Order because they have lots of manifestation, a lot of different fruits. So we look at the big picture. All this ties together to the New World Order. So keep that in mind when you look at it. I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's part of our mission. We take a menu of 3 or 4 or 5 of these every month. Okay. One of the things I really wanted to do, and I've done, this would have been my office. I converted my office to a conference room, so I had to take a small office down the hallway. So build my old office, then Art and those guys, that's the conference room. And my thing was really what I do is change the culture. Because I wanted people to work together. I came from a corporate environment, and every Monday morning we'd have a staff meeting. So you can see these people around, sit with me, we go over what's going on in your department. And I hold everybody accountable. So you said, Bob, the other day, last week, you said you're going to get this done. So how you doing with that? Well, I don't, I'm trying, but everybody knows what they're doing. So we work together and trying to get our mission accomplished. And it's done for about a year, and I do it, even if I'm not there, we do a Zoom call. And we have folks sign in on Zoom if they're way out of the area. And this happens to be in Wisconsin, where our office is at. This has really been important because I encourage ownership and unity, but also strengthen the communication and trust within the departments. Collaboration was another key thing we wanted to do. This is our media team. fostering collaboration is really important internally as well as external. And we'll talk more about that in a bit. Sharing ideas in market intelligence. We do a lot of different things at a corporate office. All these tools here are created, but it's not in a vacuum. We talk, we get lots of information from all over the United States. Technology. This Friday, I'm hoping, if not next week, Monday, we're actually redoing our New American website. We really needed to do that. And what's kind of cool about it, it's actually going to be available on your phone. And we're going to do the same thing with the JBS website. That'll be done in January on your phone. So you'll be able to order things and push out videos on your phone. I travel an awful lot, and guess what? Everybody's walking around like this. And they bump into walls, right? And also when they go to dinner with their wives, right? Everybody's looking down, right? But the neat thing about it is we need to have that tool. So we updated our website. With JBS as well as the New American, it's going to be available on your phone, okay? So that's really important because this is a good way, not just the younger folks, all folks operate that way, shoving out information. This is really important. And it really hindered us in the past, okay? And we're updating, as I mentioned, the shop JBS. You can order books online, and really stronger support for our team. Our folks are our coordinators. We can order products online. In the mission side, every month, as you know, we have a bulletin. We have various key programs we call missions. So we updated the Constitution course called Blueprint for Liberty. We didn't get rid of the old one. This is a smaller version. It's about 7-8 minutes per. Okay, and then we have our Freedom Index box, which is how did your legislator vote? So we're going to talk about that in a little while. We have our agenda materials here, and then we have legislative alerts. So, which is kind of cool about the scorecard. I don't have the box with me. I should have brought it along, but back in the days, we used to call that the trim bulletin. You remember the trim bulletins, the old Birches? So I resurrected it about 6 years ago. And this is the box it sits in. It can go in a grocery store, it can go in a diner someplace. I know you got them around here, right? And this is really an important tool because the election is coming up, midterm election. I can tell you this, I'm concerned. As it always goes, I think the House is going to go back to the Democrat Party. It looks that way. It almost appears like they're trying to make that happen. So this is really important, and we'll talk about where you can find the scorecard. But these little tools here I created these about, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And I left some for Bob. This is about the Birch Society, who we are, what we believe in, right? We've talked about this. You guys familiar with all this? This one here? Yes? Never saw this before? Who's not seen this before? You've not seen this before? Okay. Oh, come on, what's your name? What's your name? Kim. Come on up, Kim. I want to talk to you about it.
Go, Kim, go.
I don't think I'd have to.
Let's give her a big hand. Come on now.
We set you up, Kim.
No, just give me a sec. So, this is what I would do. You want to face the rest of the group. These are all friends, right?
She's shopping at the rest of
So you can do that in a second. So what happened? No, you can. Yeah, we'll take care of that in a little while.
Okay.
So, reason why I share this with you is that as I travel the United States, most people are afraid to share what they believe in. Okay? Well, who are you? And what do you do? And this young man says, "Who's the Birch Society?" Whoever this fellow is in the right of the beer. He said, well, this is really important. Matter of fact, I'll give you one of these. This is homework for you, so you can take one. This answers a lot of questions. Here you go. Your first name again was?
John.
John, okay. So the neat thing about this is when I meet people, and I never met you before, so like I always say to folks, you know, read what it says what we believe in. You want to read that? Hold on, can you read that? You need glasses?
Well, I have my glasses on.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe jumping down.
Want me to really read it?
Yeah, just the first what we believe in, okay?
American system of government, a constitutional republic. Thank you for putting the word republic in there.
You like
Is
that?
the finest ever developed.
We would never put democracy. By the way, the word democracy does not exist in any constitution of any state, including ours. So when you hear democracy, it drives me crazy. That's a total lie. Okay. So, when I say that, I'll give you a break here. So, I go through this because we believe in a traditional moral values of our Judeo-Christian heritage. We believe in a free market enterprise system. We believe in dignity of the individual. We believe in all kinds of people, ethnic, racial, religious backgrounds, judging only by their character. This is important, right? and ability and wish to judge as we judge ourselves, right? Our common bond is a love for liberty and our rejection to totalitarianism and any label. So I read this with people, this is what we believe in. Because it's important, because there was lying about us. That's not true, okay? So don't go away now. So here's the next one you can give to somebody, right? Now we have the one called Back to Basics, right? Here goes another one.
Thank you.
Here you go. We have a quiz later, right? So back to basics. Now here's one. Actually we dusted this off and fixed it up. Back to basics is really important. Now we have these tools. I left these for Bob. And you can certainly share these. That's the key, is you have to share them. It does no good not to share this. Especially when I walk around, most people don't know anything about our country. Not because they're stupid, because they're ignorant, because they're never taught this anymore.
That's right.
Like for example, what does it say, the first thing, what does it say this one right here? You got your glasses right
I
there?
gotta get you my glasses.
Wait, the first line, number one, what does it say?
Freedom cannot exist without morality.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, immoral people need more masters and more police officers. You see why they're driving our communities to immorality? Hey, you guys don't play nice. You need more what? Law. You need more, okay? What's the next one? Ignorant what?
Hold on. Ignorant and free can never be.
Here, hang on, I mean a lot of stupid people. Ignorant people I can fix, okay? It says, in order to be capable of self-government, we must not only be moral, but informed. That's what we do, right? Mm-hmm. If we're not, we will tend to vote for a politician who promises the most. Sound familiar? Mm-hmm. We will vote for more government until one day we have total government. That's what's going on today, right? If an electorate is not informed, will vote itself into slavery, what we're seeing today. Our only moral, well-informed electorate will vote for people of principle. Those who limit the government is a proper rule. So the whole thing that we try to do is we educate people on who we are and why we exist. And so we try to educate people who are ignorant to make them educated. That's the whole function of the Birch Society, is education. We don't march around outside, scream and yell. It's about education. Because Mr. Walsh says the left educates all the time. Look at our kids in school. Socialism is good, because he's starting kindergarten. And now we got a guy in Mondami, New York City, is a product of socialism, because the young folks voted for, not all of them, but this is what they pump into the soft brains of our kids. And we see that when they come into our school. I like this one here. We open this one up. You can keep this, by the way. All right?
Thank you.
So no problem. Political spectrum. Now, what's on the far right over here? Way, way in the right. What does that say on the far right? What is that?
Government.
No government. So when he said you're far right, that is not true. Because that's anarchy. That means no government. What's on the left? What's on the left over here? Yeah, what are some of those? Can you see that?
Nazism, and fascism.
All right. And we are limited government, so we're kind of constitutional moderates, okay? We're a republic. We're so if say I'm not far right, I am not far right. I believe in some form of government, but not total. So this little tool is really cool. I'll leave the last one is here. What's it say over here? Have you ever been?
When the founders established our government, they gave us a democracy
or republic.
A republic.
That's right. So what does it say? Have you ever been deceived?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, where you live? I have been deceived often.
I'm from Democratic Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, old families.
All right, so she's totally been deceived. Yeah. So the thing is, when I say this is what? You have been led to believe that our country is a democracy, and you have been deceived. It's really a republic. You know, I'll tell you, as I go around, most people don't know the difference. They don't know the difference at all. Is that good? Let's give her a hand, take a seat, see there. Good job, okay? With that in mind, we all have an application you ought to join, right? But you see what happens is, I've done this and made it simple because it's not hard if you use these tools to explain who we are in the basic Americanist principles. Now it sounds kind of like, are you kidding me? But I've done this all over the United States, in churches, restaurants, you pick the place, in businesses, it doesn't make a difference because most people are well-meaning, but they don't know the basics of who we are. And then how do you elect constitutional-minded people if you don't know who we are? That's why the scorecard is so important. That's why understanding the Constitution is really important, because you want to hire constitutional elected officials, state, local, we talked about local, right? You want to talk about the federal. But how can you do this if you don't understand the rule book? It's impossible. So we teach the Constitution. So we have said, when we go visit, my wife and I, we go visit legislators and say, hey, by the way, why did you vote this way? Could you explain to me why you vote against the Constitution? Because you went like this, right? Or like this on the Bible. And they'll say, well, could you explain to me? Legislators who know we watch them, why watch them change their voting behavior? Because they know we're watching them. They work for us, right? Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, I say that, and most people think we work for them. And they want you to give that perception. That's totally true. That's totally false. Okay? So our job is, we the people, hold our officials accountable. And the only way you can do this, you have to understand who we are. And only the Constitution. So I go around the United States, I ask this question, okay? You don't have to raise your hands because you'll get embarrassed. When is the last time, if you read the U.S. Constitution from beginning to end? And I get the answer about 3 or 4 or 5%. I'll give you one here that you can answer this question. When is the last time, if you ever read the state constitution of Georgia? You know what I get? 0. So then I ask another question. How do you elect representatives in your state when you don't even know the Constitution? How do you uphold them? To what? You know, it becomes a beauty contest. I'm a handsome guy, a little gray hair. You can hire me. I know somebody owns a Ford dealership is going to give me a lot of money. I could give a couple of jokes. You ought to hire me. I'm a crony. I do some cronyism. And that's what we have in good old Atlanta, don't we? And how do you change that? You have to say, I can't elect you, I'm going to elect him because he's the constitutional representative. And he's going to protect our Constitution. Isn't that simple? That's all we need to do. Throughout the whole United States. And I hear that all the time. Very few people read their state constitution. 0. How can you do this? So our government was formed as republics, independent states. They're sovereign to themselves. Georgia competes against Alabama. More than football, right? And then, you got Mississippi, Alabama, and you got New York. Oh my goodness! But the thing is that we're supposed to be jealous about our state to be the best state, right? What happens is, if that's the case, why did we give all our powers from the state to the federal government? It's like doing business with the mafia now. So, ma'am, you want that thing? We're going to give you $400 million for the new road system. You want that money? Sure, you did. The politician writes a check, and guess what? Now, you want to get money for your school? Got to teach homosexuality, SEL. You see how that game works? But guess what? If you look at the Constitution, the states have the responsibility to tell them what education system we have. So they pay us off. They sell us off. Our politicians sell us off to the federal government, which is our money anyhow, right? Think about that for a while. So this is important. We have a whole bunch of these tools. It goes from the Get Us Out of the UN. We had a whole bunch that you can go through. You can buy them online. But I leave these for you here. And go to my cousin Bob here. I brought some in the back there. You guys can take what you want. I know she's dying to get some. This is a fantastic recruitment tool, okay? Because it's simple. All you do is read. With that in mind, and I'll get into something else here in a sec, is I brought along a copy of the Blue Book. It's not, yes, we don't have an orange book, we don't have a green book, we have a blue book. Inside this blue book is Mr. Welch, our founder, the old fellow, the old dude there at the end, right? He actually gave this speech in 1958, and he actually put it together and says, let me tell you why we're getting together. And I tell you, I read about him and what he had to say, and I think it was a God thing where he could actually see we're in trouble. He put together the story on this whole story. I see this conspiracy. I see this evil thing happening in the world in 1958. And here we are today. You want to read this book. You can take these, they're absolutely free. Okay? Because I think these are important. This is our playbook. Why we exist and what we do. This is written in 1958. So I left some here, there's some in the back, so you can take these.
Thank you very much.
You can take those, and if you need some more, I'll send them, but we updated it as far as the cover. And I put a donation box. If you feel like you want to put $2 in, you can. So we'll get to that later. All right? So let's go on. So because there's more to talk about. The Freedom Index. Okay. So everybody get your phone out because it's going to be important. Here we go. It's going to be a test. Freedom Index coming up. All right. Everybody who has an iPhone, God bless you all. I have an iPhone. I'm sorry. I do. I like it. Anyway, so if you want to put the Freedom Index on your phone, this is what you do. You go to the... hang on, there we go. So if you go to Safari and you put in over here thefreedomindex.org, okay? So I'm gonna do that right now, thefreedomindex.org, okay? It's gonna look, if I get a good signal here, probably not, but it's gonna look like that, right? If you can do this here, let's see. Yeah, looks like this, okay? Everybody get this who has a phone? I'm gonna put this on. And then if you look at this, there's a little box where the arrow pushes up, okay? And you technos can know how to do this, young guys. So if you hit this little button on the bottom, you slide up, it says, add to my home screen, which I did, okay? And then it's gonna look like this on your phone. And now I have the voting record of every U.S. congressman, senator in the United States in my hand now.
Oh, that's
But here's the other cool thing. We spent $250,000 to do this. Ready for this one? You scroll down. We have the voting record of every person in the United States, every state legislator, House, Senate, the whole United States. So we got good old Georgia here. Remember, it's absolutely free. No charge today. Merry Christmas. So here's Georgia. I got every legislator in Georgia and how they're going to vote. And if I say, well, I got this guy over here, let's see, I'll pick Kimberly Alexander. I don't know where she's at. I just randomly picked her. And she's a 7 out of 100, right? And I got her, here's a nice little picture here. I can tell you where she's at. She's in Hingham, Georgia. Here's her index. She's a 7 too. She's a 0. She's a Democrat, of course. And here's all her voting records. What she voted on, she voted against the Constitution. So now when you go visit them, you can say, I have a question. Why do you vote this way? Or better way, you can even send this to a friend. So that's Apple. You can do the same thing for Android. So we're not biased, so you can do it for Android. Same idea, you can put this on your phone. This is a powerful tool to have in your pocket. You have the whole voting section of the whole Congress in every state now. So there's no excuse. Wherever you live, you got a cousin in California, God bless him. You got something in Tennessee, whatever it is. You know the voting record. So here's what I'm telling you. As we have an election coming up, right? This is really important to talk to the folks now and go visit the staffers of the congressmen and the legislators. You get a lot of time with them. And I have a good old friend, I'm up in New Hampshire. He visits the staffers. He's like their grandpa. And he teaches them Americans. He says, why did you have your representative vote this way? Could you explain? Because it's unconstitutional. And they go, tell us why it's unconstitutional. So why is this important, folks? Because you're teaching the young staffers how to read the bills through the constitutional eyes. And because that's how the representative votes, what the staffer tells them to say. Because they don't read all those bills. I just press buttons. Think about it. So you're really powerful. Go visit a staffer. The Congress will give you 2 minutes. The staffer will give you an hour. But never go alone. Go in 2s or 3s. My wife said one person represents 300 voters or more. But you know, the Bible said go in 2s. There's a lot of reason why you go in 2s. One guy's talking, one guy's thinking, right? But think about what I just said. This is really powerful information. So now you're armed. There's no excuse why you can't hold your legislators accountable. Okay, you have the tools. Are we going good so far? Make sense? Yeah. All right, you with me? Okay. All right, Mark, we have Tim Martin, who was a development officer, still is, and I have Tim double duty. I sent him to Washington, D.C., and he's in Washington once a month, and we'll walk around the halls of Congress, finding what's going on. We used to have, in the old days, we had 2 people in Washington. So I had said, Tim, we'll go to Washington, and he's been getting members of Congress, getting New American as a subscriber, okay? So that's really cool. He's getting congressmen and senators, and we're not negative. They're very positive of who we are. Hey, I really like what you guys come. We give them books and magazines, and we're seeing their staffers in Washington, D.C. So we want to know what's going on. They know we're around now, and we show them the scorecards. They say, hey, Senator Scott says, I better do a better job. I'm only 68%. Yeah, you better. Now they're on their desk, right? Isn't that cool? It's a good idea. Now they see the scorecards. One thing about our scorecards, folks, we never tell the congressmen or senators what we vote on. Heritage tells them what they're going to vote on, so they kind of do the best job to kind of get the best score. We never tell them. Only until after. Tom Massey said, I love your scorecard because you never tell us what you vote on. So you don't really stack the deck. Anyway, so that's what's going on here. We advertise at Epic Times, And our leadership conference, as you can see, was in the fall of December. Gary Benoit, who's the author of this book, Vanguard, we actually became friends of the Epic Times people, the chairman as well as the vice president. And they actually did a review of Life of John Birch, which we redid. It looks like this now. We colorized it, so all you guys can get a colorized version. So this is a new, cleaned up version of the Life of John Birch. And they actually did a review of this in Epic Times. And we got some pretty good calls about, hey, this is John Birch's. Interesting story about the Epic Times people. You know, if you know about them, they're from China, you know, and they talk about communism all the time. And this is what I told the chairman. I was actually at their studio. I was on their television show for about half an hour, and I've been there a couple more times since then in Manhattan. They actually did it remotely for me, but I actually did it a lifetime. I said, you know, you talk about communism in China. You know how that happened? I said, Mr. Welch wrote a book, Again, May God Forgive Us. I said, Mao Zedong was installed by Joseph Stalin. And guess what? Our administration said it was okay. So that's how it happened. John Birch, OSS officer from Macon, Georgia. It was a Baptist missionary. You all know that, right? He was murdered by the communists. And the reason why he kept it secret, because Americans would never would have funded the Red Chinese. That's why he kept it quiet. That's one of the reasons. See, it all fits together, but they didn't know that Mao Zedong was installed by Joseph Stalin. He was a communist agent. That's why Red China is communist. But it's a tool for the world government. We'll talk about that later. So that was our ad about don't be fooled by good intentions. That was a full-page ad in the Epic Times. How about that, huh? Okay, our field team is pretty good. We're kind of unique. We have a paid field staff because of the generosity of our donors. We have about 20-some around the United States. They have a lot of territory. They go to help facilitate, as we have Arthampton here, facilitate, help you guys to build chapters, answer questions, develop materials, and help you along. That's why they exist. They don't recruit lots of people for you. That's your job. Members are supposed to find other folks to recruit into the mission. You will grow on your own. They will help facilitate that growth. Mr. Welch says the number one job of a member is recruitment. Because if the thing I just gave you to share, you owe it to you have a moral responsibility to share that with your friends and neighbors. To say, this is what's going on in our crazy country. It shouldn't happen that way, but let me tell you what's going on. The New American, we went from twice a month to once a month. So now it looks like this, okay? And as I said, we're updating our website, and we'll get into this in a little second, but this was our first monthly issue. And the guy said, what do you want to do that for? I said, you guys can't keep up with every 2 weeks. So let's do it once a month, like the old American Opinion Days, right? Once a month. So this is our first one. I'll talk about this in a bit. And there's our first a month. We also have the thing called the Weekly Insider Report. Have you access, you know the Insider Report? Have you seen that, right?
Yep.
Okay. You know about the Insider Report? Everybody looks at me. So if you go to the New American website, you'll see the Insider Report. Or you should get an email. What this is what's really going on behind the scenes in Washington and what's going on. We call it Inside Baseball. That's what you see every week that Bill Jasper does for us. Well, that's what our new website looks like. And now we have some new people. There's Steve Roden, Aaron Day, Tom DiLorenzo from the Mises Institute, William Federer, right? Catherine Fitz from Economist. Can you guys see around this way? Okay, you got Ed Griffin. Yeah, you got Michael Hitchborn. You got Robert Murphy's an economist. Joel Skousen, writes a newspaper.
That's impressive.
Willie Soon wrote for us in climate change. Maggie Torella, Doctrines of Lesser Magistrates. Wow. Go Alex Newman. Duke Pesta. Patrick Wood writes his authority on AI. Gerald Flynn, who writes for us, he's got an article coming out soon. Seamus Bruner, and of course, Andrew Muller. Those are all new people.
That's awesome.
That we're having, and more will come to contribute to our magazine with different articles, okay? Here's our Western Islands book. Here's some of our books. The new one's coming out. We'll talk about those in a minute. I brought some of those with me. These are all new titles in the last year. Okay? A.E. Biggs gave us his book, The Con, The Death of James Forrestal, and The Fabian Free. And I'm just going to stop here. Okay. So here's the Vanguard of America's Cause. I think it sells for $3 on a bookstore. I mean, come on. I mean, you could, if you want to put $2 in, you can take it, right? This is a really good little book that Gary wrote. This is Shadows of Power, which is not up there yet, but we actually changed the cover. I actually bought the last case or so, and I think I purchased these for $2 a piece. It's the same information inside. The only thing we do is change it. So if you're interested, you got $2 in your pocket. This is the best book about World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam. It's about how the Council on Foreign Relations dictates the policy of our country. Okay, this is a really good book. If you have a friend, this is a good Christmas gift. If you haven't read one, you ought to get this.
Would that be good to give some of these guys who are going, like, they're hardcore going against the post-war consensus, the World War II?
Yeah, so you just have a look at this, because it tells you World War II and how it all started. They'll get pretty angry.
Okay.
Really, you'll find that was all rigged up, okay? So that's over here, Shadows of Power. Let me go on. Fabian Free was here someplace. Okay. So I'll tell you a quick story about this and about this. So, the Fabian Freeway. Quick story about the Fabian Freeway. Ready for this one? This is a chunker. We actually reprinted this book. Back in the 70s, maybe late 60s at most. Maybe before then. Rosemary. This book talks about the Fabians. They're in England. So I've been very busy in the international market because I live in England, talking about the Fabians. Okay? Let's talk a little story about the Fabians. So the Fabians were George Bernard Shaw, My Fair Lady, right? You know what that guy believed in? Eugenics. If you go online, you can actually listen to him, and he says, I'm not opposed, he says in his British accent, I'm not opposed every 5 years that people come before a board and determine if they should be living or dead. Wow. Validate your existence. Wow. I'm not opposed to that. I actually said this. You can hear it. Go check it out. Go listen to me. Go on YouTube. You can hear his voice. So much for My Fair Lady, right? So what happens was I lived in England, and the story goes as this. Aldous Huxley, H.G. Wells are all members. Tony Blair, they're all members of the Fabians, including the current Prime Minister. So this young man was writing all of his information down, talking about the Fabians, about what they were trying to do. They're a very elite group of people, how they're the light ones who want to control the world. And he's writing this information down. He felt like, boy, I got to put this in a book. But my name is Eric Blair. I really can't put my name because I look like an idiot. I can't prove this. But this is really cool stuff. He said, but I'm going to give myself a pen name. So he said, let's see. And the story goes, this is a folklore story. He said, my son's name is George, or I have a king named George. And I have a little river down the road is Orwell. So my pen name is George Orwell. So George Orwell wrote about the Fabians. Mm-hmm. So when you read 1984, it's about them. Mm-hmm. Now here's a question. Why is it 1984? Well, of course you don't know the answer to this question. I'm going to tell you, right? Mm-hmm. This organization was formed in January the 4th, 1884. Mm-hmm. And they said within 100 years we'd have world government. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's 1984. Isn't that cool? Mm-hmm. So now you see that everything's Orwellian. Well, guess what? Here it is. Big Brother. That's what he was writing about this. So I've been talking to the guys in England about the Fabians. As a matter of fact, tomorrow I have a 1-hour interview with a guy, Johnny Vedmore, who's well known in England, and he's anxious talking about what's going on in England. Keir Starmer, who's the Prime Minister of England, who's destroying the UK, and the Mayor of London are all in queue destroying their country. Now, why am I bringing this? This is a good book to see because this really tells you what's happening. But when you see England, why am I spending time there? Because that's coming attractions for the United States. That's right. Yeah, that's right. And so I have to slow them down in Europe as well as South America because I live there. And I owe it to those folks. Another good story. So this is a really good book. I think it sells for $10. I mean, can you imagine? That thing weighs more than $10, right? So it's a really good book. It gives you a tremendous amount of detail. This story about another called Teresa. I know Bob said, hey, I've got this book. Okay, so I'm gonna give it back to you, Bob. So let me tell a story about this. So this is important for you in the chapter. So Curtis Bauer, I heard him at Pastor's Conference. Curtis Bauer talked about his dad, who's getting a PhD in aeronautical engineering. And his mom convinced his dad, hey, you really ought to go to this meeting. They lived in St. Louis, worked for McDonnell Douglas, and said, you know, you said you really want to go to that chapter meeting. He says, but it's raining out. I'm getting my doctorate degree. I don't have any time for this. He said, but you really promised these people to go. He goes, all right. So he packs up his gear and he goes in. It's raining out. It's cold in St. Louis. There's two people in the room. There's the chapter leader and one person. He said, this is going to kill us. Hey, like, oh, I should never listen to my wife. But he spent the time, a couple hours, explaining the conspiracy, what was going on. And he got this one person so interested in it, he started doing research and writing, and the guy actually quit his job. And he decided that I have to tell people what I've learned. And that man is John Stormer. That's the genesis. So when you're talking to somebody, you never know who you're impacting. That's a good God moment, right? You never know. That one person, 7 million copies of this was sold. Wow. But that one person, at one time, he didn't want to go. So it's never a waste of time. Never. Isn't it cool? This is a story about how this all started with John Storm. And of course, he wrote the book. So here you go.
Thank you.
But now it means a lot more now, right?
Yes, it does.
All right. I thought it would. So Fabian Freeway was really cool. The Secret Circle, Claire Chambers wrote about the humanist revolution in schools. It tells you all about sex education, all the topics, all the legislation, all the NGOs in here. Boy, if you really want to know about what's going on, this is a textbook and what's happening in humanist revolution in our school system, in our education system. This is a compendium of really what's happening. You know, it's all done by plans. Now, why do we do this? Because I don't want you to believe me, I want you to prove it for yourself. Because once you understand this yourself, you really have that deep understanding. This is not salesmanship, this is education. Okay? And I always tell, prove it for yourself. Then come and we'll talk about it. Just like the Fabians. And then we have UN Exposed by Bill Jasper, talks about all the nastiness of the UN and what they have in mind, okay? So these are all been republished again for us from Western Islands, okay? Let me go on here. Rhodesia Accused is coming out, what's going on? The Secret Circle, we actually changed the cover. Web of Subversion, what's going on in of course, DC. And Alex Newman's book on the deep state, we're actually doing that, and more to come, and more to come. Okay, so Law Enforcement Foundation, Drew Dorrance is actually given that responsibility. We're actually getting some money involved, and we're actually spending more time with the law enforcement agency. Why is that? Because we want to keep them local, independent, not nationalized. Because you see the craziness going on in the world, you see the policemen march around DC, even though Trump, you think he's doing the right thing. No. Because that's the first step to nationalize police force. Read the Communist Manifesto. Nationalized police forces on the plank, just like getting rid of private property. And you can see it, but that's really, we're trying to avoid that. And that's why we're trying to keep law enforcement independent. And they know what's going on. They know they're trying to be federalized and they don't want it. Okay? We've been busy. Freedom Project Academy. Okay, so we have a brand new studio, and let's see if I can hit the button and see if this works.
As many of you know, we've spent the last few weeks working on something that's been years in the making. If you'll indulge me just for a moment, 10 years ago this September, we launched our first show at Freedom Project called Right Makes Mike. When we started, we had one camera and a black curtain as a backdrop. Throughout the years, we've been able to add more cameras, change our set, and bring on more talent. And now, after more than 100 million views, we are excited to unveil our brand new studio. Take a look. Throughout the next few weeks, we'll be showcasing more of what this new space can do.
Cool,
but we're really thankful to all of you for supporting us over the years and for donors for helping us realize this vision. Part of our new schedule, The Dr. Duke Show, will be airing new episodes Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and at noon Central all the time.
I was on the Dr. Duke Show last week, so I was on studio, so I said, "Can you come on in? Make it good to see you." Anyway. And so we use that to do educational programs, and we share that studio. It's probably the best studio in the state of Wisconsin.
Wow. As many of you.
Oh. All right. So now talk a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of close this out. Member engagement, you educate yourself and others, as I said about the Constitution, right? I never say raise your hands. Who read the Georgia Constitution? Don't raise your hand, right? Recruit, organize, who's your one? Recruit one person. You have to do that. You have to get your citizens involved. You complain about what's going on, more people have to get involved. Remember, it's up to you. I don't live here. I live in the state. I don't live in the community. It's up to you. You have to educate each other. You have a more responsibility to educate. You want to live in a free society? It's up to us. You can't elect somebody to do a dirty work. We have to do it for them and hold them accountable. It's that simple, right? But how can you do that if you don't know the playbook? Important. Be an active citizen, support a cause, and live Americanism. Be a model, faith, family, and freedom. Okay. What's going on? I said the paint's still wet. It is. 2026. We're expanding our reach in Europe and South America and the Far East. We're going to do an international, which we are, as we speak. We're going to do some family camps again. We're going to launch not youth camps, but family camps. We're going to grow Western Island titles. We have our PR group, and we'll do more things like that, and that's going to happen. I was involved in this independent media group. You can see Laura Logan, James O'Keefe, John Prozik, Eva, I can't pronounce her name, Lava Barak, she's from the Netherlands, Tommy Robinson, who's from the UK. And I was involved, I got a chance to meet some of those folks because they're interested in what I want to do, because I wanted to go international on their shows and podcasts. And so we're working to make that happen. Remember the old Birch logs, Bill? Mm-hmm. So we dusted off the Birch logs. Gary's doing those once a month to be on our website, but here's one I really like. It's called the Family Heritage Series. Well, if you're an old Bircher, you know what that is. Every week, we used to create the Family Heritage Series. It's about 2 pages, used to come in the mail. And we took a picture, it's about Davy Crockett. What is the lesson idea and what's the preparation? So, me as a dad, we used to read that with the kids and say, let's talk about the Constitution, Thomas Jefferson, all, and teach Americanism every week. So we're going to dust those off and make them available as a PDF on our website next year. Okay? Mm-hmm. So that's good. Our job is to educate families, right? And we've had this tool all along, just dusted it off. Mm-hmm. Sally Humphreys is 93 years old, who wrote those. We talked to her. She goes, I am so glad you're going to have my crowd again. I'm so proud. I even write the new forward for you. So thanks, Sally. I'm 92. I'm getting old and crickety, but my brain's still good. God bless her. She wrote all those. We have 2 years worth. We have 104 of those things. She wrote every one of them. Can you imagine? And she's 93 years old. I live with my daughter now in Virginia. Okay, honey. I'm pretty excited about this, but when you read these things, they're really cool. I mean, about people in the past, like all about how they showed up, and they're all, Davy Crockett, who is this dude, and why is he important? Thomas Jefferson and other folks. And it's really good to see this because we're teaching Americanism, because they're not taught that in schools anymore. Yeah. I don't care who you are. I look at those and go, hey, I forgot that. This is really cool, because it gives you a real appreciation for your culture and your heritage. See, if they steal this away, we can change it with anything. And that's what's going on in Europe. They're taking away all their heritage on purpose. They're destroying their heritage, because you can't build a new world order unless I destroy the past. Yeah. And that's why they're destroying England with all their history on purpose. And the Brits know this. You see them marching in the streets, and my wife says to me, this lady's name, she goes, I'm here, some lady she knows, but they're not silent. Yeah?
Katie Hopkins.
Katie Hopkins. So she's not, but it's people like her. They're not silent because they know their country's being destroyed. I used to live there, and those people love their history. It's criminal. All right. Oh, go back again. So I was involved about a month ago. I went to the CEO conference at Liberty University, and there's 450 CEOs. I was one of them, and I had a chance to spend 3 days on the Liberty University campus. And these are my students. You see how they all tatted up, look like real bums, right? Pretty interesting. It looks like kids of the past, right? And my wife would call it Beaver Cleaverville, right? Not Beaver Cleaverville. These kids were real, you know? And they all said, you know, I don't know what the Lord wants me to do, but I'm trying to do this and that in my life, you know? There's 16,000 kids on campus.
Wow.
There's 130,000 students online. It's the largest Christian college in the world now.
Yep.
I got invited to come back again in January to talk to a couple of the classes in Career Day. January, February, and March. And so my job now is to go to other colleges like this, because I'm going to recruit interns and build new field coordinators right out of college.
Good
I
for
figured,
you.
so I'm going to try to do that. So this is really important. So let me tell you a story about the kids, okay? Because I think they'll be my kids, right? The thing about it is that they really want to be told the truth. Tell me really what's going on. Could you tell me why it's going on? Could you just tell me? And I told them, life does this. I started as a research scientist in medicine, and I went this way, and ended up in Lockheed, and I was in the Vietnam era, and then I left that, and I came back and ran my own business. Then I lived in Europe for a while. Then I came back to corporate life, and now I'm the CEO of the Birch site, which I've never since I've never guessed it 50 million years. But all the things in my past prepared me for this job. Looking back, I said, all those things happened. All my European connections, because now I'm in Europe, because I travel all over the world. So I know what goes on, but how that all, I'm going through this, I would never know that. I told them, life does this. And they were very interested about the Constitution, about who I was, but I'm going back, I got invited back by a professor yesterday to speak to the class, 2 classes on the 27th of January and the 28th, about 450 students for Career Day talk about the Birch Society. And we'll do the same thing in February, the same thing in March. And I want to do that at school. So let me give you a little something about CEOs. There's a Christian-based CEOs, and I walked through the hallways. It was so good to see CEOs praying for students.
That's right.
Good.
Amen.
And we talk about the Fabian Freeway, you know, that's really important because I'm doing this, that's a European gig.
Yeah.
And here's something kind of fun. Yes, we have the thing called the New European, and so it looks like this. And, you know, and so now we change it to New European, so now it's alive and well. It's actually, I was going to bring mine, but somebody, as a British would say, they nicked it. Because I have this in French. I have the AI one in French.
That's neat.
And Vanessa Baird Schaefer, whose dad's American and her mom's French, she has a show in Paris and Toulouse, she lives, and she passed out our information in French to French podcasters. And our next job is what I'm doing now, UK this week, and then we're going to do Germany and the Netherlands. And then Steve Banta and Alex, mostly Steve Banta, who is our publisher, speaks 3 languages, Chinese, but he also speaks fluent Spanish. And I'm going to convince him to go to live in Argentina, because we're going to go out and sit in Argentina and do the New European. We're going to do it, and that's going to maybe New South American, but it's going to be in South America.
Wow.
Good.
Because Argentina and Ecuador and El Salvador and now Chile has a new prime minister who's very conservative. So you see what's going on, because people don't want to be slaves. But now we have to connect dots for them and say, let me tell you really what's going on here. So inside this magazine, which you probably have seen, if you're not a subscriber, you can get this. We sold out this magazine. We made these reprints. I left some back there for you, Bob. When I was in Australia, live on a television show, from home here, good old Georgia, I showed this online. Now, I want to spend just a second about this. I did this when I was doing the European thing yesterday. David Knight, David Knight show? I was on a show for an hour yesterday. And I showed him this picture. And David Knight's a pretty well-tuned guy, right? Used to work for Alex Jones. He goes, what is that? I said, these are all the offices of the United Nations.
Yeah.
You all thought it was just the East River folks in Belgium, huh? Sorry. When I said this to the French people, they were just like, what? So what are they all doing in all these buildings? You know what they're doing? You're on the menu, that's what they're doing. They're slicing and dicing up the world. Okay? That's why UN Exposed is important. So that the Europeans don't know this, but now they do. So if I see a lot of noise going on, it's okay. There's a video on, which I watched on the weekend, about this lady, her name was Alex, he's a Phillips, he's a she. She says, you know, I heard about the Fabians recently. And she said, I don't know all the buzz about it lately. I said, I wonder what that's all about, Alex. And she had a barrister, which is an attorney, and some other. And she said, you know, I did some digging about the Fabians, and they've got this, and they're nationalized this, and they're really socialists, and George Bernard Shaw. And she says, you know, I didn't know much. I talked to a bunch of cult weirdos, but I have to see what's going on. And our prime minister's a Fabian. All Labor Party members were Fabians. Think about every Labor Party, John, you know, all those guys in the past, going back to the 1940s, were all Fabians.
Wow.
So what are they doing? So here's a funny story about the Fabians. President Wilson sent Colonel Mandel House over. League of Nations failed in 1919, and he said together, I'm going to have they call this group called the Inquiry. These are very elite, smart folks, supposedly, and British and Americans. And he said, we have to form this international group. So the Inquiry, which were Fabians, and the Fabians got started from Cecil Rhodes. How about him, right? And Lord Milner. They said, we're going to have one in the United States. We'll call it the Council on Foreign Relations. So this is Mama. That's the baby. And this was more powerful than the Fabians, and they worked together. So the genesis of the Council on Foreign Relations comes from here. So that's why I show this book. It's so important to know the essence of where this comes from. It's obviously very satanic and evil because it's all about, I just told you, eugenics. You all going to live, see if you're going to live, and come to the Board of Inquiries, and nah, you didn't make it, so you're dead. Right? The guy really believed it. So you see how this all works together? It's conspiratorial. It's not theory. It's real. That's why I said read the books, because it's not me telling you this. You have to prove it to yourself. Because I don't want you to just believe me. You have to prove it to yourself. So this is cool that this came from the Fabians. That's why I've been harping on the Fabians. And so she said, I've been doing digging, and I was so happy to see that. So anyway, that's the story with the Fabians and doing the New European. And lastly, JBS website, CRM system, and we have a Gamify app we're working on. We'll do this early next year. We'll do this for young adults and even old adults to go through, and you get points. Answer questions on your phone, you get points, and you get a badge. About Americanism, you keep on going, and points and points and points, you get another little win. And this is how we're teaching Americanism, because I watch men doing Candy Crush on the airplane. I go, no, this is bad. This is wrong. I said, the other guy was in first class, because I fly so much, I'm going, no, I can't believe you're doing candy. No. Please, just pick a fork in your eye, right? Something? No. So we have it's called Gamify. It's called Liberty Quest is the app. We think it'll be out probably end of January. Nice. And I'll let you know when it comes out. It'll come out in the Apple Store, and you can go through and learn all about. We have 5 different levels. Pretty hard questions. We wrote some tough ones as you learn Americanism. Okay. So with that, I'll shut up. And so anyway, have any questions? I try to cover the waterfront, and I've been yakking for a while, but I just want to let you know. There's a lot of wonderful things we're doing, and we continue to grow. But I'll tell you, people really want to hear the truth. We arm them with the information here. And once they see that, their eyes open up and say, thank you for telling me this. But I'm going to encourage you to read the Georgia Constitution, to visit your legislators, okay? Because the only way we have an election to hold them accountable. That's the only way it's going to happen. Because you'll learn the Constitution when you visit them. And don't be intimidated. Remember, they work for us.
Right.
And I know you think it's the other way around. What did Tom Massey said? He has this little Precious on his lapel. This Precious, because it has this Congress. Everybody thinks he's like special. He goes, I wear this because it's kind of weird because I feel I have the power. But they don't have the power at all. It's really us. Remember, congressmen said they never get phone calls from the constituents. Tom Massey said, never get a phone call. Isn't that scary? So I'm telling you guys, now you're on notice. Go visit your state legislators. You know how that goes. I've been talking about that. And see what makes them tick. And say, why are you voting this way? Make sense? Now you guys aren't members. You ought to join up tonight because, time is ticking. You need more people out there. Do you have any questions or comments or criticisms? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
I'm wondering, with the Epic Times, I used to be interested in Falun Gong and all that.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
And I'm kind of wondering, is the JBS kind of a supporter of, I mean, obviously religious freedom, but Falun Gong's
No,
a little...
we're not a supporter of Falun Gong. No, we just know them, they're anti-communist. We're not a religious organization, good question. We're not a church, we're not a religious organization. We believe in everybody, as I mentioned, all walks of life. Our job is liberty. You can practice religion any way you like. Our job is liberty. Without liberty, you can't do anything. Remember, the enemy we against are amoral, no religion at all, they have no morality.
Right.
Zero. That's why they killed over 100 million people. They could care less about us. They kill you tomorrow morning, could care less. Once you get to understand how they think, it's hard to imagine because they're satanic by nature. We talk about Luciferian, but their amoral means no morality. So that's how they killed 100 million people in China. They could care less because they have an agenda. They're not communists. Remember, communism is a tool for world government. Mao Zedong is not a communist. He's a globalist. He's dead now, of course. But that whole concept of globalist, they use communism as a weapon. So socialism is part one. The soul walk, the communism, which never works, and then it's totalitarianism. Look at what happened in Cuba. Castro shows up. I'm going to free you poor folks because the current regime is destroying you. So he shows up. It's the worst place in the whole wide world. And guess what happens? He shoots all the generals that put him in power. We go to church with somebody, right? And she's Cuban. She in the middle of the night, you hear gunshots go off because he executed all the generals. Okay? Right? Think about what goes on. So this is their game. But guess what? It's coming attractions for here. And they will incite more terror here because we live as free people all of our lives. So I got to fight complacency, people. You can't be complacent. You have to spend a little time preserving your country. A little time. Okay? And I'm trying to encourage you to do that. But you have to be educated of who the heck we are. And it's not that hard. So if you want to have a next Christmas and love your family, your kids, do it for them. And do it for yourself. Make sense? This is not expensive. This is not hard. It's just spend a little time. But a good question about Falun Gong. But yes, I know these people. They're really anti-communist and good people. Any other question? If not, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's. Take a look. You can feel like you want to put $2 in the box because there's books of this sitting on the floor. Thank you so much. I hope I answered your questions. I hope it wasn't boring, but I try to do my best. All right? Thanks.